First released in 2009, LaSalle took the Napoleonic Wargames world by storm, winning a number of awards and finding a large and dedicated following around the globe. Now it's returned for its second edition, which, the author tells us, is not simply a tweaking of the system, but a complete overhaul. The rulebook comes as a nicely presented, just under A5, full-colour booklet that runs to 154 pages. It's well illustrated throughout, with full-colour diagrams explaining each of the rules, bringing clarity alongside photos of games in action. The rules in each section also include a note from the author, explaining his rationale behind them and what historical precedent he's trying to reflect. This is a nice touch that Sam has been using since the first edition. You may not always agree with his conclusions, but at least you can understand what the author's trying to achieve. For those of you who have never tried LaSalle, it's a game designed to be played in roughly 3 hours and involves about 15 units a side. These units are divided into brigades, which means the player takes on the role of a divisional or perhaps a corps commander. There's no hard and fast basing system, meaning that you won't have to rebase your existing army to give LaSalle a try. This is always a blessing and something we really welcome. A low barrier to entry instantly makes a game worthy of consideration, and this one, for its many interesting rules, historical complexity and reputation, is somewhat unexpectedly welcoming in different ways. Distances and ranges are given in base widths. Infantry battalions and cavalry regiments are usually made up of 4 bases each, with the author recommending 8 infantry to a base or 3 cavalry. Again, it doesn't really matter how many miniatures you have in your bases to play the game. Each turn of the game is broken down into phases, and the first phase is the momentum phase. This is where the players add up how much momentum they have to spend in the coming turn. These momentum points are expended when giving your units orders, so the more momentum you have, the better. And how is that momentum determined? Well, at its most basic, simply by having unbroken units on the board will earn you some, but momentum's also increased by various special rules. This might be how many aide-de-camp your general has, but it's also down to how well your skirmishers are doing at pinning the enemy into place. Having worked out momentum, the turn turns to the skirmish phase. Here's where we see the big difference in LaSalle from many other rule sets. Rather than play out the effective skirmish screens on the table, the players instead tot up the skirmish value of their units, roll the corresponding number of dice, and see who scores the most hits. If you win this skirmish battle, you gain extra momentum points and you get to make the first move in the game. This is a quick and easy solution to a part of the battle that can sometimes bog a Napoleonic war game down, with both sides sniping away in a wearying battle of attrition. It also adds values to skirmishers. The extra momentum gained, as well as the ability to move first, can be really crucial to victory, and your skirmishers will potentially retain their value beyond the early poking stages of the battle. Next comes the intervention phase, and it's here that players must decide if their general will intervene directly on the board to influence a small section of the battle, or if he will remain at headquarters, controlling the overall strategy. There are pros and cons to both options. If he remains at HQ, the army gains more momentum overall. If he intervenes, a small, localised number of units can really benefit from extra moves and can make a decisive action. The risk here, though, is that your general might become a casualty should he get too close to the action, and that will have an impact on your momentum for the rest of the game. This is another example of how LaSalle implements an elegant and easy simulation of something that is potentially fraught with gameplay complications, but at the same time retains the right historical feel. Command gives players a real choice: micromanage a crucial part of the battle, or step back and run the bigger picture, and it does it without the layers of rules that other games might present. This also does away with the need for command figures to race about the board, as will also be found in some other games, although there's nothing stopping you from putting some special models on the board if that takes your fancy. We get into the meat of the Napoleonic sausage now, the orders phase. The player who won the skirmish battle goes first, issuing orders to units from a selected list of options. These include rally, move, change formation, fire, and so on. Every order you give uses momentum points, with some, such as moving through rough going or charging, costing more in points than simple manoeuvres on open ground. Note that this isn't an I go you go system, and nor is it quite simultaneous or randomised activations. Instead, some orders, especially those given whilst your units are close to the enemy, allow your opponent to interrupt and steal the initiative. At this point, they can now begin issuing orders and moving their troops until they either run out of orders and pass the initiative back to you, or you gain a chance to interrupt them yourself. In this way, the game can be rather unpredictable, but within predictable parameters, with control flowing back and forth between the players. Melee and firing rules are also provided, with units rolling a number of d6 to hit the enemy, then rolling hits again to convert them to disruption markers. When a unit's taken a certain number of disruption markers, it's shaken, and then breaks when its total is reached. Disruption markers can be rallied back by giving a rally order, but if the unit fails, it loses those points permanently from its roster. They can never be rallied back again. This does a great job of representing the slow attrition of a unit during the course of a battle, and it feels very much like playing the period, forcing you to identify when your momentum is best spent on moves and charges, and when it may be better to pause and regroup. When played as written, you might need quite a few markers to record your disruption points and to show the status of your units. Considering the flexibility in basing, you'll be able to come up with all manner of ways to do this quite neatly on the tabletop, potentially incorporating those statuses on the bases. But if markers aren't your thing, the author suggests printing an army roster where you can keep disruption and status recorded. The rosters are available for free on the website, along with other resources. Artillery fire can be particularly devastating, as round shot can bounce through units to hit those behind. This is something that happened historically, but it's not often represented in Wargames rules, so bonus points to this one. The game ends and victory is decided when one side has achieved its objectives, or if an enemy has lost a number of its brigades. After the first 96 pages of the book, which cover the basics, are a variety of optional advanced rules. These include the use of partisans to attack your enemy's reinforcements before they arrive on the board, the use of aide-de-camp to improve your command and control, and the inclusion of sappers in your units to assist with attacks on buildings. Around 10 pages of wargame scenarios are included, alongside a historical setup for Quatre Bras, and the rules conclude with some frequently asked questions. This section addresses some of the, and we'll cue air quotes here, expected elements of Napoleonic gaming, such as why squares can't move. In a set of rules that continues to buck quite a few gaming conventions, this was probably a good idea from the author. It allows him to directly address the reader and explain what the rules are trying to achieve, and why they don't always follow the pattern of previous Napoleonic rules. The Honor website provides an army builder program that allows you to design your own force, whilst ensuring that both sides are balanced. Indeed, these rules have actually been written with one eye on the competitive scene, which you can tell from the writing style and thoroughness. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and there's still a good bit of period flavour to the gameplay, with the additional benefit that the rules are very clear, well written, and don't suffer from the overuse of legalese that some of the competition rules have in the past. The rules are also well supported on the Honor website, with scenarios, quick reference sheets, and other downloadable material to help you play. Overall, this is an intriguing second edition of an already rather iconic and trend-setting rulebook. Everything's well written and presented, and there are some genuinely clever approaches to dealing with things that can bring the wrong kind of gaming friction to other games in the period. We're looking at you, Skirmish Screens and Command. LaSalle 2nd edition would be the ideal choice for anyone looking to play a divisional-sized Napoleonic game, especially if you enjoy more creative rules that bring new tactical considerations to your games. It's certainly a set to look at if you want to run club campaigns or competitions where players design and bring their own Napoleonic forces to pit against each other.
This video has been brought to you by WI Prime, Wargames Illustrated magazine's online members club. View more videos or find out more about WI Prime by following these links.